Welcome to the next topic. So the next topic is microeconomics. From UPSC perspective, IAS perspective, this topic is not much relevant, but because last year the government changed the base year. So when the government changed the base year, then only microeconomics is relevant from exam perspective. But still, this basic concepts of demand, supply, elasticity, marginal utility, they are relevant from each and every exam. So first we will discuss the basic of economics, what is macroeconomics, microeconomics, what is capitalist economy, centrally planned economy, mixed economy, why India adopted the mixed economy model. Then we will discuss the demand, the definition of demand, law of demand, determinants, and all these things we will discuss. Finally, we will discuss the supply and the market equilibrium concept that was given by the father of economics, Adam Smith, way back in 1776. So first we will cover what is economics, what is the definition of economics. So in any economy, the demand is always more than supply. The demand of the natural resources is more than the availability of the natural resources. So it means the natural resources of any economy, they are scarce. So whatever the limited resources that any economy is having, that limited, from these limited resources, the production, distribution and consumption of the natural resources is known as economics. So economics is nothing but in any economy the resources are limited, scarce resources we have, so their production, distribution and consumption in any society is known as economics. Now economics has been further divided into macroeconomics and microeconomics. Macroeconomics means if you studies the behavior of individual unit, single unit is there. For example, your and my salary, if I am saying the output of an individual firm, your total income, my total income, so all these are, you are studying the behavior of an individual unit. So if your focus is individual unit, then that is known as microeconomics. And macroeconomics is you are study the behavior of a system as a whole. So under this macroeconomics, there will be small micro component. And if you are reading this full system as a whole, then that system is known as macroeconomics. For example, if you are calculating the national income of India, if you are calculating the inflation, so national income, inflation, the total demand, the total supply of the economy, the total production of all the companies, that is known as the macroeconomics. So from IAS perspective, macroeconomics is relevant. We discussed taxation, monetary policy, inflation. All these are the examples of macroeconomics. And under microeconomics, we have this demand, supply and the GDP and aggregate, the GDP base year revision. All these things we'll discuss. Then the next thing is the different economic systems that exist across the world. So all of us know that USSR was disintegrated 1990. Earlier in USSR there was the communist system, that communism system. Under that communist system, the full natural resources, they belongs to the society. Now any representative of the society, that representative can be government that is selected by this society. Now they own the natural resources. And this capitalist economy, under this capitalist economy, whatever the resources, the natural resources, they belongs to the individuals. As per their profits, they are distributing, they are producing something. So the resources belongs to the individual in capitalist economy. And on the second hand, this centrally planned economy, under this centrally planned economy, all the decisions, what to produce, in what quantity, when to produce and all these things, all these decisions will be taken by the central government, and then that particular decision is delegated later on. We discussed principle of subsidiarity also, which is just opposite to this centrally planned economy. And then we have the mixed economy. So this capitalist economy, it was propounded by Adam Smith. In his book that we will discuss in Market Equilibrium, he wrote a book that is known as the Causes of Wealth of Nation. an inquiry into the nature and the causes of wealth of nation. So in that book in 1776, Adam Smith, who is also known as the father of economics, they propounded this capitalist concept that laissez-faire should be there. The private sector should be allowed to do whatever they want to do. Then only there will be equitable and efficient distribution of these limited resources. So this was the concept which is being followed by the capitalist economy. Under centrally planned economy, what they are saying is because the government is having more research and all these things, so they can frame the policy which is good for the whole of economy. Then we have the mixed economy. So when this capitalist economy failed during 1930s, the Great Recession came. After this centrally planned economy came into picture. In a lot of countries, this centrally planned economy was implemented. And finally, when the India got independence, or after this 1930s, Keynes, J.M. Keynes, under the chapter of global recession, we will cover few points about 1930. What was there in the before J.M. Keynes came into picture and after J.M. Keynes, the classical economic model and all. So when J.M. Keynes said that private sector in itself is not sufficient to avoid recession, so the government intervention is must at some level. So there should be some positives of the capitalist economy which should be added, and there should be some positive of the centrally planned economy, they should be added, and finally that is known as mixed economy. And India adopted mixed economy. So under mixed economy there will be private sector also, and there will be centrally planned policies also. So why India adopted mixed economy is because when we got independence, the British government or the East India Company, which was further replaced by the British government, they systematically deindustrialized Indian economy for almost 300 years. And when we got independence, at that time, there is a lot of problem of poverty, unemployment, no industrial growth. So we were facing a huge problem. So at that time, the private sector was not at all matured. So although we allowed some of the private sector, but because it was not matured, so the space which private sector occupied in Indian economy when we got independence was very less, and majority of the area was controlled by the government. Because all these problems, these social problems, economic problems, private sector is not much bothered to take care of this problem. That we will discuss in the allocation of resources by private and government, the positives and negatives of both. But at that time, although the private sector was not much, but still because of all these problems, unemployment, poverty and all, we allowed private sector also, but majority of the economy was driven by the government. So this is what we have, some basics of the economic system that exists across the world and why India adopted the mixed economy model. Then the first thing is demand. What is demand? Demand is nothing but the amount of commodity which an individual is willing and able to buy over a period of time. Now the catchword in the definition of a demand is willing and able. The individual should be willing as well as there should be ability, financial ability should be there. So this willing and able is the two catchwords. Very much similar to this willing and able, there is one social security program of Government of India, that is MG Narega. Under MG Narega, if an individual is willing, if an individual wants to do some work, so the state government has to provide the work. So that is the MG Narega case. Within 15 days you have to provide the work. Recently MG Narega 2.0 came when the MG Narega program completed this 10 years. So MG Narega 2.0 came. So in the exam you can expect a question on MG Narega. Maybe they will give some features. What are the new features in Engineering 2.0? Such type of question. Anyways, the definition of demand is the amount of commodity which an individual is willing and able to buy over a period of time is known as demand. Then there are two related concepts, that are the stock variable and the flow variable, or the stock concept and the flow concept. So stock variables and flow variables. So stock variables, they can be measured at any point of time. The measurement can be done at any point of time. It means they don't need to be measured over a period of time, but flow variables can be measured over a period of time. For example, let's take the example of geography. Under geography, we have two concepts, weather and climate. So weather and climate, we usually in the newspaper it comes the weather forecasting and not the climate forecasting. So why weather forecasting is there? Because what is the definition of weather? Weather means for a short duration. At any point of time you can say this is the weather of this area, and the climate is the average weather over a period of time, which is roughly 30 years. So climate will be an example of flow variable, because flow variables or concepts are those variables which can be measured over a period of time, and this stock variable which can be measured at any point of time. For example, if I want to ask you the total money supply in India, so RBI is having this information. So money supply in India will be an example of stock variable. The stock output of this particular country, that will be an example of the stock variable, because we have that information. You can find out at any point of time. Then in case of flow variables, then can be measured over a period of time, just like demand. Demand can be measured over a period of time. So demand will be inflation. All these things can be measured according to demand, and which is a flow variable. So all these are the example of flow variables. Then we have the next one is the law of demand. What is law of demand? Law of demand says that when the price of any commodity increases, whenever the price of any commodity increases, the quantity demanded of that particular commodity, it decreases. Of course, if the price of this pen will increase, I'll stop buying this pen. So when the price of any commodity increases, the quantity demanded of that commodity decreases. Ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus means other things being constant. You don't have to think about the supply and all these things. You only have to give me the relationship between price and quantity demanded. Other things, all other things being constant means ceteris paribus. So if other things being constant, the relationship between price and quantity demanded is inversely proportional. When the price will increase, the quantity demanded will decrease. So this is what the law of demand is. Then we have the determinants of demand, how the demand is being determined. So there are a lot of determinants of demand. The first determinant of demand is price. So when the price will increase, the demand will decrease. This we discussed. The second one is income. So when income will increase, the demand will increase. So the graph will be like, if this is income, when income is increasing, the demand is increasing. It means a direct relationship will be there. But there is an exception of this particular relationship, and that exception, these special type of goods, these goods are known as inferior goods. For example, suppose you are consuming bajra and jawar, and this bajra and jawar, they are known as core cereals. Suppose your purchasing power is not that much, so rather than consuming wheat and rice whose price is more, you will consume bajra and barley maybe. So if you are consuming bajra, but if your income increases, now if your income increases, so rather than consuming wheat and bajra, you will shift from wheat and bajra to some more cereals like rice, like wheat. So the demand of this inferior goods, it decreases when your income increases. So the relationship will be like this. When the income increases, the demand of, this is not the demand of normal goods. These are known as normal goods. But this relationship is for inferior goods. You just have to remember, when income increases, the demand of inferior goods is decreasing because there is a shift from these inferior goods to the normal goods. So their demand will decrease. Within these inferior goods, there are special type of goods and they are known as Giffen goods. Sir Robert Giffen gave this concept during 1930s. So Giffen goods are those inferior goods. So first of all though, if this is inferior good, so there will be some Giffen goods. It means all Giffen goods are inferior goods, but not vice versa. So Giffen goods, they comes under inferior goods, but what is the characteristic of a Giffen good is, first of all, the Giffen good gives you the relationship between price and quantity demanded. It is not giving you the relationship between income and quantity demanded, but it is giving you the relationship between price and quantity demanded, and the relationship is directly proportional. The fortunate or the unfortunate thing is, Sir Robert Giffen didn't give any example of these goods. He just gave the concept, and his followers gave the concept. And low quality wine, they said low quality wine. Although it depends, in India wine is a luxurious good, but in case of European countries where there is a lot of consumption of wine, the low quality wine is regarded as an example of Giffen goods. And what are the examples of inferior goods? The examples are like potato, we discussed bajra, barley, all these, and even we can say nano car. Nano car is an example of inferior good. If suppose your income increases, then you will not buy nano car, maybe you will shift to some other four-wheeler. So this is what the examples of inferior goods, but it also depends in what form you are consuming this inferior goods. When I said potato, so raw potato can be an example of inferior goods, but once this potato is converted into this chips and all and of McDonald's, so it becomes luxurious. Now they will come under 150 rupees, 200, 250 rupees. So it depends in what form you are consuming these goods. So this is what the Giffen goods. So Giffen goods, they are the exception of law of demand, because in law of demand we discuss the relationship of price and quantity demanded, that is like this. But Giffen goods products, they are like this. So Giffen good is, they are the exception of law of demand. Then we have one more type of goods, that is known as Veblen goods. These Veblen goods, they are also known as, they are used for conspicuous consumption. They are very, very high prices goods, and they are related to the social prestige. Suppose some limited edition watches are there, some very rare diamonds and all are there. So when their price will increase, this is what the graph is, when their price will increase, their demand is also increasing. So don't get confused between these two curves. Veblen goods are very, very high price goods, and Giffen goods, they are the inferior goods. So all Giffen goods are inferior goods, but not vice versa. Although the graph of Giffen goods and Veblen goods is same, both are giving you the relationship between price and demand. But the thing is, this commodity, first of all, it should be the inferior good, then only it can become an example of Giffen goods. So this is what we have, the second determinant, that is income. Now the third determinant is price of the related goods. What is the price of related? Now related means it can be substitute or it can be complementary. Substitute is, for example, tea and coffee, the classic example, and petrol, diesel. In case of complementary, we can say pen and ink. Now you have to tell me the relationship between price of tea and demand of coffee. Similarly, they are not known as demand curve, they are known as cross demand curve, because on one hand it is the price of tea, but on this axis it is the demand of coffee. So they are known as cross demand curves. So price of pen and demand of ink. You have 30 seconds to give me the answer. So price of tea is there. When the price of tea will increase, it means the demand of tea will decrease, and when the demand of tea will decrease, the demand of coffee will increase. It means when the price of tea is increasing, the demand of coffee will increase. This is what the substitute is. And in case of complementary, when the price of pen is increasing, so the demand of pen will decrease, and when there is no pen, there is no need of ink. When the price of pen is increasing, the demand of ink will decrease. So in case of complementary, it is inversely proportional, and in case of substitutes, it is directly proportional. Then the next determinant is the change in taste and preferences. Now this is again divided into two: favorable shift and unfavorable shift. So it is like, this is what the demand curve is, this is the price, so there is a rightward shift if it is a favorable shift. So suppose earlier this was the price and this was the demand. So now when this curve has been shifted, so it is like this. This is the new demand and the price is same. Suppose the summer season extends, and when the summer season extends, so the consumption of ice cream will increase, the consumption of AC will increase. So although the price is same, but the demand of these things will increase. So this is known as the favorable shift. Favorable shift means rightward shifting. Similarly, if there is unfavorable shift, the summer season, it becomes less, the duration of the summer season decreases. So in that case, there will be leftward shift of the demand curve. This is known as the rightward shift of the demand curve. So this is taste and preferences. Then the expectation of the future prices. This is also one of the determinant. So for example, if you are assuming that in future the prices will be high, so now you will consume more, you will buy more. For example, if somebody, it is very common in case of agriculture commodities. For example, onion. If you assume, if you are thinking, or whoever is the middleman, if the warehouse wala, they assume that the prices of onion are going to increase, so they will start holding more and more of onions. That is also the expectation, what you are expecting of the future prices. Then we have the population. So population is one of the major reason of demand. If the population will increase, demand will increase. If the population will decrease, the demand will decrease. Then the next topic is the basis of demand. What is the basis? How the demand is being created. So it is not only the willing and ableness, it is also related to the utility. So what is utility? There is a difference between personality and character. And what is the difference? You can say the personality of this person is good, and you can say, but the character of this person is not that good. What is the difference? The personality is how you are behaving with respect to the outside world. When somebody is watching you, when society is watching you, how you are behaving, that is known as the personality, the persona. And the character is when nobody is watching you, what you are from inside, that is known as the character. Similarly, utility is the same, it is related to the character thing. It is similar to the character thing. It is mutatis mutandis, which is nothing but it means similar. So the utility is similar to character. Utility is the psychological satisfaction that you derive after consuming the commodity, or the want satisfying power of any commodity is known as the utility. But this utility is highly subjective. How it is subjective? Maybe I want to consume apple, you don't want to consume apple. Maybe today I want to consume apple, but tomorrow I don't want to consume apple. Maybe in Mumbai I want to consume ice cream, but in Delhi I don't want to consume ice cream. So it is highly subjective. It changes from person to person, place to place, and time to time. That is why this utility is the actual basis. Now this utility is further divided into marginal utility and the total utility. So utility is nothing but the psychological satisfaction that you derive. The want satisfying power of any commodity is known as the utility of that commodity. The marginal utility is nothing but the satisfaction that you derive after consuming one item. That is known as the marginal utility of that thing. Suppose you are consuming apple. So the first apple, the marginal utility of first apple will be high. The marginal utility of second apple will be slightly less. Maybe after 4 or 5 consumption of apples, your marginal utility will become 0. Now you don't want to consume any apple. So if I am saying, if suppose with this table you are consuming apple, it is the number of items, it is the marginal utility, and it is the total utility. So first apple when you are consuming, suppose the marginal utility is 10. And how you measure marginal utility? Utility is being measured in the units of utils. Just like to measure the distance, you have kilometers, meters. Similarly, to measure the utility, the unit is utils. Although it is very difficult to measure it, because we already discussed, it changes from even person to person, time to time. Suppose today I want to consume this thing, tomorrow I don't want to consume this thing. Here I want to consume in Superfrost room, I want to consume maybe coffee, but maybe outside I don't want to consume coffee. So it's highly subjective thing, but still you have to convert this subjectivity into objective thing. That is why utils is the unit. For first apple, the marginal utility is 10, so total utility is again 10. For second, the marginal utility slightly decreases and it becomes 9, total utility becomes 19. For third apple, maybe it becomes 4, so it becomes 23. Fourth apple, it becomes 0. Now you don't want to consume more. Can marginal utility will be negative? You don't want to consume, still you are consuming. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible if somebody is forcing you. Some external incentive is there. Suppose one of your friend came, you are consuming apples and you have already consumed 4 apples, now you don't want to consume any apple. But your friend came and said, I will give you 10,000 rupees if you will consume the fifth apple. So there are chances that you will consume that fifth apple also. So it will become 18. Maybe suppose the next friend came and he said, I'll give you 10 lakh rupees if you will consume this next apple, the sixth one. So now even the marginal utility is minus 8, still you will consume it. So actually the demand is dependent on this marginal utility and not the total utility. So what we have a law also, the law of diminishing marginal utility. So the law of diminishing marginal utility, marginal utility is there and demand is there and the marginal utility is there. So it is like this. It is what the law of diminishing marginal utility. So actually the law of demand is derived from this law of diminishing marginal utility, where this is what the demand, the number of apples that you are consuming. So maybe first, second, third, fourth. So at fourth apple your marginal utility was 0. Now on the fifth apple your marginal utility, it was in negative. So even though it is negative, but still you are consuming it because of some external pressure. So this is the law of diminishing marginal utility. The next one is the elasticity. Elasticity of demand, elasticity of supply. Elasticity means the degree of responsiveness that you have with respect to the change in price. It means if I will change the price from 5 rupees to 10 rupees, how the demand will be affected. If I change the price from 10 rupees to 50 rupees, how the demand will be changed. If I change from 50 to 100, how the demand will be changed. So the responsiveness to the change in price is known as elasticity, or we can say E equals to percentage change in demand upon the percentage change in price. How price is changing, its effect on the demand, and their division is known as elasticity. If E is more than 1, it is known as elastic. If E is less than 1, is known as inelastic. And if E is equal to 1, then it is known as unit elastic. And the graph is like this. If suppose this is what the demand is, this is for commodity B and this is for commodity A. Suppose this is price P1. At price P1, this is demand D1. So if you want to see, suppose the price increases and this is the new price P2 and this is the new demand D2A. Similarly, this is the new demand D2B and this is the new price P2B. And E is nothing but the ratio of percentage change in demand upon percentage change in price. For commodity A, the percentage change in demand is this and the percentage change in price is this. So this upon this, whether it will be more than 1 or less than 1, it clearly it is less and it is more. So this by this will be less than 1. So it means commodity A is inelastic. commodity B, this is more and this is less, this by this will be definitely more than 1. So it means commodity B is elastic. Now there will be an extension of these curves. If I am saying this is inelastic, tell me the curve of perfect inelastic commodity. Perfectly inelastic. It means whatever will be the price, you are going to consume it. For example, the life-saving drugs. Although they are not 100% perfectly inelastic, but still they are somehow regarded as the example of perfectly inelastic commodities. So the graph or the curve of perfect inelastic commodity will be parallel to x-axis or it will be parallel to y-axis. Perfect inelastic. This is inelastic. I'm asking about perfect inelastic. So in case of perfect inelastic, it will be parallel to y-axis, and in case of perfect elastic, it will be parallel to x-axis. So this you have to remember. Elasticity more than 1, less than 1 and all these things. Then in case of perfect inelastic, it is parallel to y-axis, and the second one is it is parallel to the x-axis. Then the factors which determine the elasticity. So there are 3 major factors. The first one is the nature of commodity. Nature of commodity means whether it is necessity or it is luxury. The second one is the availability of substitutes. Available or not available. And the third one is the income level of consumer. If it is poor, middle class, or the next one is very rich. Tell me which one will be elastic and which one will not be elastic. You have 30 seconds. You can pause the video. So in case of necessity, it is highly inelastic. In case of luxury, it is elastic. If the substitutes are available, so it is elastic. If the substitutes are not available, it is inelastic. The first 4 are simple. Tell me in case of poor, whether it will be elastic or inelastic. So yes, it is inelastic. In case of middle, it is elastic. And in case of very rich, again it is inelastic. Why it is inelastic in case of poor? Because poor, they don't have extra money. What they are consuming is the basic needs. What they are consuming majority is food. So they cannot decrease the quantity or the demand of food because it is a basic necessity. So because of the basket, the consumption basket of the poor, what the poor consumes, that demand is inelastic only. In case of middle class, it is elastic. We can shift. In case of very rich, again it is inelastic. It doesn't matter whether the Ambani brothers, for Ambani brothers, if the price of wheat is 50 rupees or 250 rupees, it doesn't matter because it is very rich. If they want to consume this quality of wheat, they will consume that quality of wheat. It doesn't matter whether the price becomes doubles, triples or something. So this is what the determinant. So this can be asked in the exam. Then we have the supply. Just like we have demand, similarly there is a concept that is known as supply. So in case of supply, what is the definition of supply? Other things being constant, the amount of commodity which is being supplied by a firm is known as supply. Then the determinants of supply. So the determinants, the first determinant is price. So the graph of the supply curve will be, or the law of supply is so this supply is from the perspective of suppliers, from the firms. So when the price increases, if the price of any commodity increases, my revenue is increasing. If I am a company, so I will increase the supply. So when the price increases, the supply increases, of course other things being constant. So this is what the law of supply says, that if the price of any commodity increases, the quantity supply of that commodity increases by the suppliers ceteris paribus. So if price increases, the supply is going to increase. The second one is cost of production. So when the cost of production is going to increase, so the supply of that commodity is going to decrease. Suppose earlier this pen was being produced in 15 rupees and the selling price was 30 rupees. Now suppose the cost of production increases, the labor cost, maybe the raw material cost, it increases, and the cost of production becomes 25 rupees. So the margin of the company is decreasing. So the company, rather than producing this pen, maybe produce some other thing. So the supply will decrease. If the cost of production is increasing, the supply is going to decrease. Then change in taxes, or we can say increase in taxes, and these taxes are indirect taxes. So similar to cost of production, if the indirect taxes are increasing, suppose the raw material cost is 15 rupees and the government excise duty was 5 rupees, so finally it was being sold in 20 rupees. But suppose from tomorrow the government increases the indirect taxes and increase it to 15 rupees. So now the price is 30 rupees. So in this case, the supply of this commodity will be less. Then the third one is the change in technology. So technology is a positive concept. If there is some change in technology, some specialization in technology, so that is going to increase the supply. Then it is very much similar to the elasticity of supply and the elasticity of demand are same, except one thing. Can you draw the map? Let's put this video on hold and just draw the map of elasticity of supply. So the first mistake that is mostly being committed by the students is just they copy paste like demand, but that is not the same. The supply curve is like this. So at this price P1, the supply was S1. This is for commodity A, similarly for commodity B. Maybe for S2A and P2A. This is S2B. So commodity B, here it is E will be, in case of E equals to percentage change in supply upon percentage change in price. So this is less, this is more, E is less than 1. In this case, this is more, this is less, E will be more than 1. So this commodity B is inelastic and commodity A is elastic. So this is what the elasticity of supply means. Next we have, next concept is the market equilibrium concept. So this concept was given by the father of economics, that is Adam Smith. Adam Smith propounded that the market should be free the natural resources should be distributed by the private sector. There should not be any involvement of the government. The private sector is very efficient. Just allow the private sector without any intervention. This was the concept of Adam Smith, and he propounded this concept in his book in 1776, An Inquiry into the Nature and the Causes of Wealth of Nation. This is the name of the book, An Inquiry into the Nature and the Causes of Wealth of Nations. But this market equilibrium concept is, if this is the demand curve and suppose this is the supply curve, straight line or whatever it is, this is price and this is quantity demanded or quantity supply. This is the point of equilibrium. The point at which the demand curve and the supply curve meets is known as the point of equilibrium. And this is the price which is ideal for this particular commodity. And this is the amount of demand and the supply is. But suppose artificially somebody increase the price P1 and they increase it to like this. So at this point, this is the demand P1D, I will say, and this is P1S, supply at price 1 and demand at price 1. Or there is possibility that the price has artificially been decreased to P2. So in this case, it is like this, it is P2D and it is P2S. Now try to understand it. This is the equilibrium. Suppose somebody artificially increased the price, or suppose somebody artificially decreased the price. So in that case, suppose first take the example of P1. At P1, this is what the demand is and this is what the supply is. It means it is in excess of supply. This is the excess supply. Now if any firm is having excess supply, so they have to sell this excess supply during this, they have to give some options, this sale, that sale and all this thing. It means P1 is not good for the supplier's perspective because they have to involve in sale. To involve in sale, they have to do the advertisement and all this thing. So it's not a good situation for supplier. Similarly, P1 is also not a good situation for the person who is consuming it, the demander, because now the consumption, whoever is consuming has to pay more price. So P1 is worst for the consumer or who is creating the demand as well as the supplier, because supplier will be forced in the sale and all because this is the excess supply, and who has created the demand, they have to pay more price. So this demander also wants to decrease the price, this supplier also wants to decrease the price. So ultimately they will decrease it and finally it is going to come and meet at this point. Now take the example of P2. Suppose somebody artificially decreased the price to P2. Somebody can be anybody. It can be a big company, it can be producer, it can be the consumer, it can be anything. At point P2S, this is what the supply is and this is what the demand is. So this extra is known as excess demand. After almost 10 years back, when there was not much reforms in the communication, when there was very less availability of Airtel SIM, Vodafone SIM and all these things, at that time there was almost monopolistic competition. We'll discuss in the types of market. There was a hegemony of BSNL, and think about today, because this is all only because of the inefficiency of the BSNL. So at that time there was a waiting period for BSNL, just like we have the waiting period of the recently this, I think the Maruti launched this particular Brezza. So Brezza, there is a waiting of 9 months. So in this case, although the price is less, so whoever has created this demand will be happy. Less price is there, but there is no availability of the item. No supplier is producing it. It means only the demand is there, but actually the item is not there. So this, whoever has created the demand will not be happy. The firm is also not happy because the firm has to sell the commodities at less prices. So their revenue will, their profit percentage will decrease, and that is going to negatively affect the total profit. So that is why the firms wants to increase the price. Similarly, the demander, whoever has created the demand, the consumer, they also wants to increase the supply so that at least the quantity, the commodity is available. At this price, no commodity was available. So at P2, eventually P2 will increase and it will reach finally the point P, and this point P is known as market equilibrium, or it is also known as the invisible hand. It is the invisible hand of concept given by Adam Smith, which also propounded the laissez-faire. So this is what the market equilibrium is. Then we have the allocation of resources. So whatever natural resources any society is possessing, so they can be distributed by the private sector or they can be distributed by the government. So the government distributes through multiple channels, like they have license. Just like recently the spectrum sale and all will be there. So license is there, quota system is there, registration system is there. So all these are the options through which the government distributes the resources. And how the private sector distributes the resources? The private sector is regarded as highly efficient because there is a personal incentive attached. Think about SBI and ICICI. In case of SBI, can you tell me the salary of the CEO of SBI? And SBI comes under Forbes 500 list, the top 500 companies of the world. The average salary of the CEO of this Forbes 500 list is 4.5 crores, and the salary of the CEO of SBI is roughly 40 lakh rupees. It's like 10%. And even though SBI will perform well, there will not be much profit to the CEO of SBI because SBI CEO may not be having the shares of SBI. So even though the company increases, in government sector, the increment is fixed, that is roughly 3% annually. No matter how good you are performing, how bad you are performing, up to a certain level. Of course, if you are within this band, then within this band means 99%. You will get a fixed 3% increment. But that is not the case in case of private sector. If you're not working well, no work, no pay. If you are really working good, then in that case, maybe you will get 30%, 40%, 50% increment. But that is not possible in case of government sector. So this is why the government, the distribution of resources, just like we have Indian Airlines, the distribution of resources through BSNL. Now because nobody was there, nobody questioned the working of these public sector enterprises. That is why they becomes inefficient. In case of private sector, your own money is involved, so you will question it. The investor will question. But in that case, nothing like that. But there are a few negatives of private sector also. What is the negative of private sector? The demand is there and supply is there. This is from the economics perspective. But from socialist perspective, India is a socialist economy, that is mentioned in the preamble, added in 1776. That is different. But yeah, after 42nd Amendment Act, India is a socialist country because it is specifically mentioned in the preamble. So demand and supply can be matched by the private sector. But need and supply, what is the need of that thing? Now this cannot be solved by the private sector. Similarly, the social justice cannot be ensured by the private sector. Just like BSNL, in all the far-fetched areas, suppose some forest is there or something, you may not get the signal of Airtel, Vodafone and these private companies. Most probably you will get the signals of BSNL. The reason is the government has to ensure social justice. If suppose there is some externality, for example, in case of Naxal areas, these private companies, they will not create any infrastructure, they will not build the road, In case of Naxal areas, the road will be built by the government organization. That can be BRO, Border Road Organization, but that will be done by, if suppose there is a lot of pollution in Delhi, so these companies, they will shift from Delhi to some other state or some other city, but that will be the duty of the government to eliminate that particular pollution. So some government company will be involved. So these are the some positives and negatives of allocation of resources by private sector as well as the government sector. And then we have the types of market. So there can be basically 4 types of market. It's like perfect competition. Then we can have monopoly. Then imperfect competition. And then we can have oligopoly. So the first thing is number of firms. So in perfect competition, the number of firms, the second one will be the number of firms in perfect competition is very large, huge number of firms. In case of monopoly, only one firm will be there. In case of imperfect competition, there will be large firms, but one is big and other are small. In case of oligopoly, few firms will be there. Roughly 2 to 10 firms are there in case of oligopoly. Then the type of commodity in perfect competition, it is homogeneous. In case of monopoly, it is unique. In case of imperfect competition, it is heterogeneous. You will understand all these things when I give you the example. In case of oligopoly, it is both homogeneous as well as heterogeneous. Now the example is perfect competition example. As such, there is no example of perfect competition in the industrial world. But yes, we can say farmers. All the farmers, they are producing wheat. So wheat can be regarded as an example of perfect competition. Salt can be regarded. Now you can say, sir, salt comes with iodine, without iodine. Very much possible. But roughly I am giving you the exact example. These are regarded as wheat, salt and all. They are regarded as an example of perfect competition. Because farmers, they also make salt. Companies, they also make salt. A very large number of firms, they are involved. Then we have the monopoly. Any example of monopoly? The example is, there are only 2 sectors under which there is a monopoly of the government. These 2 sectors is railway transport. It's not only railway, remember, because we have IRCTC. So railway transport as well as the atomic energy and the minerals associated with atomic energy. So only 2 sectors have the monopoly of government, and for private sector there is no monopoly. Then we have the imperfect competition. The example is FMCG companies, Palmolive and all this thing. So the soap can be manufactured by different companies. So the product is heterogeneous. One is having this, second one is having that, and all these things. Then the oligopoly. In case of oligopoly, the homogeneous means, for example, some companies, they are making iron, some companies making steel, because the chemical formula of iron and steel is same, so it is going to be homogeneous only. But heterogeneous how? We can say the civil, aviation, only 8 to 10 firms are there. Similarly, telecommunication, only very few firms, they are having this telecommunication services. So heterogeneous also and homogeneous also. Heterogeneous means somebody is at the frequency of 900 megahertz, 1800 megahertz, so different frequencies are there. Then some remarks are there. So perfect competition is the best type, but not much exists because it's very difficult for this type of market in any economy. In case of monopoly, it is good if the monopoly is of the government, we can say it is good up to certain level, it is good. Then in case of imperfect competition, almost 60 to 70% of the Indian market comes under imperfect competition. And in case of oligopoly, it is not that good for any economy because they can cartel. Just like the insurance companies, the Competition Commission of India, they said that even the government companies, they have created a cartel and nobody was decreasing this insurance premium. So if there is oligopoly, 2 to 10 companies are there, so there are chances, there is a risk associated with the cartelization. So it is not that good for the economy. So these are the some topics which are related to microeconomics. Then in the next lecture, we will discuss about GDP and related concepts. What is GDP? What is GNP? Factor cost, market price, constant, current. What is net factor income from abroad? What is the national income? Different methods to measure the national income. Then the calculation of national income in India. What is private income? So all these things we will discuss in the next lecture. Thanks a lot.